Hello everyone, I'm going to talk about a two-step data augmentation method for mask face detection and recognition. We call it turning fake masks to real because we turn the output masks from our first step into more realistic ones by using a second step. Mask face detection and recognition tasks are discussed even before the pandemic. After the spread of COVID-19, it has become more urgent for us to improve the performance of these tasks. However, the mask face datasets suffer from data insufficiency. To solve it, we either need to collect new data or we have to generate artificial data. Our work focuses on generating artificial data. For this artificial mask face generation task, the existing models are categorized into rule-based ones and neural network-based ones. We can see the three columns in this slide: ours, neural network, and rule-based. The rightmost column is a rule-based column. From the top row to the bottom, each row of images belong to the simulated mask face recognition datasets, results generated by the masked face tool, a masked face net dataset, and the masked LFW dataset, respectively. For the category of neural network-based methods, we show the identity-aware mask GAN or IM-GAN in the neural network column in the middle. IM-GAN translates images from non-masked faces into masked ones using a model similar to CycleGAN. The left column shows our model. Our rule-based first step is exactly the method used to produce masked face net. That's why the left two images in the ours column look similar to the masked ImageNet images shown in the rule-based column. Using a second step, an image-to-image neural network model, we turn them into more realistic images, like the right two images in the ours column. We know that image-to-image translation requires two datasets, datasets A and B, representing the distributions in the source and destination domains respectively. Our set A, as we have mentioned, are from masked face net, and for set B, we extracted single-face bounding boxes from the multi-face MAFA dataset and selected a subset. The bottom row is sampled from this final subset. Our method is based on AttentionGAN, a GAN model stemmed from CycleGAN. AttentionGAN shares with CycleGAN the co-training of two generators in opposite directions. It also implements attention masks as its new component. With the help of the attention masks, the translation can focus on certain objects in the image. Our first improvement to AttentionGAN is the non-mask change loss. The original AttentionGAN loss functions mostly followed CycleGAN. For example, the traditional GAN loss, the identity loss, and the cycle consistency loss are all inherited. AttentionGAN also proposed a loss for the attention mask. It calculates the differences between all pairs of adjacent pixels, sums up these differences or say variations, and tries to minimize the sum. This is called the total variation loss. Because the official code repository of AttentionGAN didn't implement this attention mask loss, we directly replaced it using our attention-related loss, the non-mask change loss. This loss utilized the fact that after our first step, we already have the ground truth facial mask region. That is to say, we also have the ground truth non-mask region. So it compares the input image with the final output and penalizes any change to the non-mask regions. Our second improvement is to add noise to the generator. This idea was from StyleGAN, where noise is added to each layer of the generator, achieving the diversity of its final results. We have plotted the details of the AttentionGAN generator in this slide, with three transposed convolution layers for the content generator. Gaussian noises with zero means were fed into the last two layers. Actually, to decide exactly which layers to feed our noise into, we designed some experiments. Look at the top left. The pair of images are input and output from our experiments on a model trained without any noise input. These noise dots are produced by noise input at the stage of generating the output. Only noise input to the last two layers produce this kind of noise. The first layer basically assimilated any noise and doesn't reflect it to the final output. Using the same experiments, we also determined that the suitable Gaussian standard deviations for the second layer is 1, and that to the third layer is 0.2. The last method we integrated into our experiment is transfer learning. We have gradually improved the data sets and methods along the way, but we didn't discard previous checkpoints. We believe that checkpoints from less ideal model settings or data sets are at least better than a random start. For a glance of our training timeline, our initial parameters were learned from a multi-phase generation task using the same model, which is something outside the scope of our paper. For the single-phase mask generation itself, we first filtered the MAFA dataset by two labels, the simple mask label and the fully occluded label. After training for 60 epochs, we further filtered the data by a third label, the front-facing label. Then after epoch 90, we decided that the images in our dataset should not have pitch or roll rotations, and they should be limited to light-colored medical masks only. This last selection step is achieved by handpicking because MAFA didn't label these features. In the bottom row, we can see the images we discarded. The first two images were discarded because they are not front-facing. The third one involves pitch rotation, and the fourth involves roll rotation. The last one has a simple mask label, but it was still discarded. Veils like this were labeled as simple masks in MAFA, but they were eliminated by us manually. The last two rows in the table are not about any dataset improvement. They are about adding the non-mask change loss and the noise input as we discussed in previous two slides. To discuss our results, we first want to analyze the problems addressed by the methods. Transfer learning was planned to speed up convergence, and it also ended up having alleviated overfitting because the initial epochs are trained on a much larger dataset. By adding non-mask change loss and adding noise, we also addressed a couple of other problems. The first one is the lack of color diversity. The top row shows some images from the output of epoch 279, an epoch before the noise inputs are added. These images have identical colors. And the second problem is the distorted faces, as shown in the bottom row. This problem is also an indication of the unstable training because it appears recursively, looping with well-translated, non-distorted images. After applying non-mask change loss and adding noise, both problems were mostly eliminated. Before we discuss the comparison between our method and other existing methods, we can have a peek at the images in the next slide to see the color diversity and the reduced distortion. Look at the right image of each pair. The color diversity is not strong yet, but we do see some masks are white, some are blue. Some, for example, the man in the middle of the bottom row has a mask with a tint of green. On the other hand, the distortion is not only eliminated in this epoch, but also stably reduced over a long period. This slide is also a comparison of our two-step method with the rule-based single step. Each pair of images represents an input to and an output from our neural network model, while the inputs are from the mask face net. So they are exactly the result of some rule-based model. We can see that our result has improved the transition from mask regions to the background faces, and we introduced more realistic lighting changes, fitting the people's cheek curvatures better. There are also some visual effects that the masks are lifted by the nose bridges. Besides, in the surrounding areas of the masks, we find details such as the mask stripes and irregular boundaries caused by the fabric folds. As the training goes on, we found there is more diversity in color and more realistic visual effects to the masks. We cannot show all the epochs to illustrate this trend, but we have picked two epochs in the timeline. This allows us to have a concept of this trend. The other of the two epochs is here. Besides improvements, in this epoch 476, distortions to faces became more severe too. Noise blocks on masks also started to appear. This is also a consistent trend as training goes on, and it leads to our analysis of overfitting. On the right part of this slide, pair A shows a girl who has a red color block in her hair, and pair B shows that the woman's mask has noisy patterns, especially on the bottom part. Neither of them is a single case. They appeared a lot in the model output. After investigating our training set B, as shown on the left part of this slide, we found there is a portion of images where some person wears a red hat. In a different portion, people wear patterned scarves, outdoor hoods, etc. that occluded the mask. We believe these are further evidence showing that the red blocks in hair and the patterned blocks on masks may be results of overfitting, because they are similar to the patterns in our training set. In conclusion, we have increased realness and diversity, but the overfitting also gets severe. Lastly, we want to compare our model to a neural network-based model, IMGAN. We cropped the images from the IMGAN paper. This possibly resulted in lower precisions than the actual images they used. And we also know that researchers usually get their testing and training sets from the same source. So the images used to test IMGAN should be from the same distribution as their training set, while our training set is from a different source with a slightly different distribution. That means our testing result here on the right-hand side is slightly biased toward IMGAN. However, we still produce features complementary to the IMGAN results. For the future directions, most apparently we need to improve our datasets. Ideally, our sets A and B should have differences only in mask realness. However, there are other heterogeneities, such as mask types, facial orientations, and more. When trying to eliminate them, we got small datasets. This is currently alleviated by transfer learning, but if we want to achieve more solid results, we still need to enhance our dataset with both factors in mind: the similarity between A and B, and the size. Besides that, a third factor we want to improve is the mask color or type diversity. We also want to improve the non-mask change loss. Our current loss function compares the input with the final output using the ground truth mask region as an attention filter. This can be replaced by comparing the ground truth mask region directly with the interim output, the attention mask output. We can also turn the non-mask change loss into a non-binary loss. Instead of assigning each pixel a value of either 0 or 1, indicating whether it belongs to the mask region, we can assign values between 0 and 1 to regions surrounding the mask boundaries. And these values decrease as we get further away from the mask center. This leads to weighted modification possibilities. Currently, we generated masked stripes and fabric folds in the areas surrounding the boundaries. We expect to have more such details with the non-binary loss. Lastly, the increased mask type diversity in datasets should go with the corresponding loss function improvements. Different types of masks differ from each other in shape. Therefore, with mask type diversity, the image-to-image translator may need to change the shape of a mask. However, cycle loss is better at dealing with the pixel-to-pixel mappings. We think distance constraints could be a better candidate. It requires that the distance between two samples in A should be preserved in their mappings to B. Distance constraints are usually used with single-sided domain mapping when it is impossible to obtain cyclic loss, because the generator in the opposite direction is missing. In our work, we only translate copy-pasted masks into more realistic ones, not the opposite. So single-sided domain mapping with distance constraints is suitable for us. Alternatively, we can retain the training in two directions and use distance constraints together with the cycle consistency loss. these as referenced papers. Any questions?